Welcome to episode 87 of the Toadstool Boardroom. I am your host, Chris Shriver. Alongside me, as always, is Justin Coreyes. Good evening, Justin.
What's up, Chris? It is good to see you, my friend.
And, as you may have noticed, Logan is not here, which means the inmates are running the asylum this week here. Ah, yes. Excellent. Very good. Very, very good. He's out on assignment. Where he's in LA? I know he's at.
I think so.
Dodgers.
Yeah, honestly, he's told us both multiple times exactly where he is. I honestly, for the life of me, don't remember. Sorry, Logan.
It's fine.
But Logan, if you want to tell us, you could email us.
Yeah, feel free to shoot an email.
Toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com.
Yep. We got a great show for you this week. It's going to be a bit of a different episode, obviously, with me and Justin running show. Should make for a very technical conversation. Should be free of any franchises that we don't, that get probably more airtime than they should on a Nintendo podcast. That's all well and good. Because up from the ashes, we will bring whatever franchises we care about, dear listener. Our first topic this week, we're going to talk about some of our favorite franchises. Originally, we had this as franchises that Logan hates. I don't know that we're necessarily doing that, but we will start out with one, I think. First one is going to be Star Fox, the Star Fox franchise. So the idea here is we're going to talk about some of the franchises that we love, what they mean to us, their legacy, what we think Nintendo might be able to do with them. So, Justin, take it away. What are your thoughts here? The Star Fox franchise.
Right off the bat, let me tell you that this franchise is meaningful to me because my very first episode of the Toadstool Boardroom was the 30th anniversary of Star Fox.
I remember that.
Just a little over a year ago. I love Star Fox, especially the original. Honestly, I think something like on rails flight shooty game is really cool, and I'd love to see something like that come back. It was a technical marvel on the Super Nintendo. You know, everybody who was around for them remembers the marketing around the Super FX chip, and that's something that I've always found really fascinating. I was doing a little kind of a bit of research on that. Pardon me, the idea that, the cartridges came with a coprocessor, which is something that happened occasionally, but was not extremely common in the Super Nintendo era. The Super FX chip is one. There's another one called the CX4, which I found out was what helped run Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3. There's the DSP series of processors that were used in things like Mario Kart and Pilot Wings and things like that. But none of them were literally printed on the front of the box. None of them had a decal on the artwork like the Super FX chip did. It was as a kid, you didn't know this thing existed, then they said, hey, this thing exists and it's cool, and you're like, oh, this thing exists and it's cool. I know that now, and you just, you take whatever they tell you and you run with it. But it was easy to believe because nothing did polygons like this. Nothing looked like it was 3D. Everything was flat 2D sprites, and I don't mean flat in a bad artistic way. I just mean literally that's how things worked. And this
polygonal.
Yeah, exactly. And this was fully polygonal, and it if you haven't played this game to completion in a long time, I think it's easy to sort of picture that first level in Corneria where you're flying around, you go through gates, you shoot some things, but you do so much in this. There's a level where you go through a massive asteroid belt. There's a level where you have to fly inside of these massive ships in this armada, blow up their cores, and work your way to the boss. It had amazing music, awesome boss fights, and it expanded on all of those things in the Nintendo 64 era and had one of the true classics in Star Fox 64. Sadly, the series frankly hasn't been very good since then, and it's one I would love to see return to form, and it's one where I would love to see them avoid the common mistakes that they've made of trying to shoehorn Star Fox into games that he's not. Star Fox Adventures or Five Nights at Star Fox, where you're managing security cameras the whole time and things like that, right? I think that, you could bring this back with an absolutely stunningly gorgeous space shooter and could do something really cool and interesting with it, and that's what I'd love to see him do.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. The one question I do have for you, because I was very young when I think I might have just been born.
I get it, I'm old.
I know. When the first Star Fox came out. I remember when 64 came out.
Ouch.
But do you remember, was this around the time that blast processing was a big thing in the Genesis era? Were they competitively promoting that at the same time?
it's hard not to conflate those things. Like it's tough to look back and reconcile.
Try
like,
to remember.
Yeah, like if those things were marketed simultaneously, if they was one before the other, at least in my head, it's kind of the same conversation of each manufacturer trying to say, hey, we have the newest, greatest, most powerful thing. And I do think the Sega Genesis like had some similar success. I remember, and like not even necessarily Sega first party. I remember playing games like Road Rash.
Heroes.
Well, I was thinking of Road Rash, where it has like the big yellow tab on the cartridge, and like you don't know what that's for. You don't know that that's basically meaningless. You just assume, oh my god, there's a power in there. Whatever's going on, it's a super special ultra deluxe cartridge. Which is what I will say, that is something that doesn't exist today with things like digital content, with things like on disc. You know, you can't put a microprocessor on a disc and ship it out, and so the variations in the like hardware aren't what they used to be, and it was a fun era because you literally like would sometimes only be able to guess what's going on under the hood. Like you would literally have Super Nintendo cartridges, and like you would compare them, and some would have more pins than other cartridges. Like
the closest thing we have to that now is almost like having some kind of like, remember, what was it, Crackdown 3 on the Xbox had some cloud integration.
Yeah, right.
Where they were like, it uses the power of Azure, and it was like cool, but I'd much rather know that there's like a dedicated onboard chip that's just making the thing either run better or look better.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
honestly, I think our most current analog might be just when you boot up a game and you see like a Havoc logo, and like other third party tools, which like it is meaningful, but not quite the same thing.
Yeah. Now with Star Fox, I mean, getting back to just some of the things that I think the franchise could do, like there were things that Starlink Battle for Atlas on Switch. I think it had some good ideas, but I'm of two camps. Like part of me really likes the idea of having like just big expansive universe that you can explore, and you're playing as the Star Fox team, and you're going and collecting bounties, and blah 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 blah. And then the other part of me is like, what if Nintendo really just started like saying, hey, we're gonna reboot a lot of our older franchises, but we're gonna do it in these like B tier games. Like they're games that they cost $30, they cost $40, kind of similar to what we've seen with like Mario versus Donkey Kong. But they're like new experiences. They're meant to be played in like 6 to 8 hour chunks. Not in one sitting, obviously you could if you wanted to, but you get through it in about 6 to 8 hours. And like that's just kind of understood, almost like Ratchet and Clank was for the PS4. Because I feel like there's definitely a market for that. Like now that
people like me,
I feel like Nintendo's like leaving it on the table a little bit. Like there's this idea that every Nintendo game that comes out has to be like 1,000 hours, or like you have to get like squeeze every drop out of it, like Tears of the Kingdom or Mario Odyssey, if you're gonna get like every moon and every coin and costume and all that. And I don't always want to do that. Like, I don't want to have 3 games that I play a year because they're so expansive,
Yeah, honestly, I think while we talk through this list, something that, if we're talking the right way to bring these back, I think a great model actually is Metroid Dread. A really excellent execution on the classic formula using the modern tech. And I think, if you distill like what the best parts of them and just focus on that, and don't try and really go far beyond that scope. Instead, just focus on doing a great job of that. I think a lot of these have potential to be excellent games to play.
Yeah. And I mean, even, I won't go there. But Punch-Out actually did an interesting job on the Wii when it launched. Like, obviously, they let you utilize some of that's going to be our next one that we're going to talk about here is Punch-Out. But had a really good job with like incorporating the motion controls, but it also gave you the ability to play it like it was like an up-resed version of like that NES release. You could also fight Donkey Kong, weirdly enough, in that one. But yeah, I mean that's one that you could almost set that up, and I can't believe I'm even suggesting it with like seasonal content where it's like this season you have these fighters,
Battle Pass.
Yeah, almost like a battle pass type thing, or similar to. Not that I agree with it completely, but the like this would make a great Switch Online game if they rotated the fighters in and out like every quarter, and it was like, all right, now you're fighting. You have these people that are available to fight. You unlock like whatever. I don't know.
Oh yeah, shout out to Punch Out 99. But no, like I think you're totally right, because I think there's a lot of elements of it that lend itself to that. Again, like the fact that you do have like very very character heavy bosses that you fight. Like your opponents are like extremely character focused, right? And you can do things with a battle pass that are aesthetic, like your walkout gear, your boxing gloves, your shorts, music, things like that. I think that it's something where you could do a lot of fun things that don't necessarily have to like affect gameplay, because I think that's where something like a battle pass really gets you into trouble, is if it contains things that again becomes pay to win, or if you're extremely missing out rather than just having fun with it. And I think this is something you could have a lot of fun with.
Well, and Punch Out's one of those games, like, it is what it is. Like, you can't really expand too much on it outside of, like, the core gameplay. Mm-hmm. What would be really cool is if they did the thing that they do with Tetris 99, where it's like, hey, Luigi's Mansion's coming out, so you can, like, you fight Luigi, or you fight, like, EGAT or something.
Like,
and they, like, have
put
different
the ring
styles and stuff.
In the mansion, and you are fighting Luigi? Come on.
Yeah.
How great does that sound?
Like, make that promotional content for your other games, and just like, all right, you pay, it's part of your Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of your expansion pass. Like, it starts up, it's like fairly bare bones, and we just filter some stuff in there. It's a value add for the service, and it's just a fun, silly thing. Oh, I love that so much, Chris.
Yeah, I would give anything. Now I want that to happen, like, really, really badly. Oh man, I mean, similarly, this is our next one here. The Wii U launch title, if you were a purchaser of the premium tier of Wii U consoles, Nintendo Land.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is one that they've really left on the table, and one that really showcased the Wii U gamepad really, really well. But the other thing that it did was it breathed life into a minigame style type of game for other Nintendo franchises outside of Nintendo, something that we really haven't seen otherwise. And obviously we've had new franchises since that game originally came out, but there are probably a lot of different games that you could incorporate from even the existing franchises that happen, or just give me Nintendo Land again. Like, just like rework the games a little bit, so I don't need the gamepad.
Yeah, I love Nintendo Land. I thought it was so much fun. And because it's a big collection, like, it was a little hit or miss, but like, honestly, I loved the little Zelda game where you run around flailing your sword about. There was that really fun Metroid one where you fly around in the spaceship. Even I forget which game it was tied into, but the one where you're like throwing ninja stars off of the gamepad. They were.
Yeah, what was that for?
I know. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember which game had throwing stars.
Yeah, I want to say it was Chic, but I don't know if it's true.
It was Takamaru's Ninja Castle from the game The Mysterious Murasame Castle. So I did not have that one committed to memory, but I love that one.
Yeah, that one I didn't have.
Yeah, Captain Falcon's Twister Race. Like there were those great asymmetrical ones where you would have like one person on the gamepad controlling two people trying to like box somebody in. I think that was an Animal Crossing tied in one.
Mario Chase did that really well.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah, but give us some sort of platform, and that doesn't need to necessarily be. I mean, it'd be great if it was a Nintendo Switch Online thing and they were just adding content to it. But, like, I'd even have it if it was, like, a platform where they're like, hey, we're dropping new games into... Almost like they used to do with the 3DS Spot Pass game or Street Pass games. Mm-hmm. Where it was like, you get a pack of, like, 3 games for $6. Have at it. And it's, like, the Metroid shooter one, things like that. I feel like that's a really good way to... Again, either promote games that are coming out or just give us something to do when we're in kind of these drought cycles a little bit. It's great. I feel like it's great for when you have a platform where you're able to promote other franchises within Nintendo. Like, I feel like that's really where fans get excited. And then you get like the diehards that are like, if F-Zero 99 comes out, and they're like drip feeding updates there. Like, that's always a good thing. But I feel like you get more people involved.
Well, and it's a great low risk way to like highlight and showcase old franchises that maybe have been dormant. Like we hadn't really had anything Metroid for a very long time when this came out, and so it was cool being able to see that. Like one of the attractions is based on Balloon Fight. It's a fun way to showcase some of the history there, and I wish they would keep doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
It feels like, as much as I like what they've done with these big roundup remakes and stuff, I wish that it would feel more like that could work in conjunction with things like this or things like NES Remake or NES Remix. Some of the more whimsical approaches to that idea.
Yeah, like I feel like part of if I'm a new player, like I think about my nephews, or younger player, and I'm like, okay, my uncle's been talking about Metroid since I came out of the womb. Like, where do I begin? Well, this NES one is very old, and like they just stop there. Like there's not really, unless you have someone that's kind of Sherpaing you through the world of Nintendo titles of like, this is what you really should be trying, like out the gate. It's kind of hard it can be overwhelming, like going into Nintendo Switch Online and you not knowing where to begin with a certain franchise.
I think there's an opportunity that Nintendo is missing to curate that experience a little bit more, and be a little bit more direct in, they have this enormous history, and they of course they know that so much of their player base comes from people who are our age, who have kids now, and want to share their passions with them, and a lot of it is access to newer stuff, but like I absolutely have gone out of my way to try and show my kids some of the older things that I grew up with, and a lot of things that are foundational for what we play today. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. And I think Nintendo could take a hand in that, and sort of guide that where they think would be most advantageous or appropriate for them.
Yeah, because really, like, what you want is, okay, it's almost like that Inception thing. Like, you're planning the idea of, I'm playing a Metroid game in Nintendo Land. And then you almost want like the Amazon shopping cart experience of like, hey, you like this Metroid game? Why not try Super Metroid in your Nintendo Switch Online subscription?
Yeah.
Also, and then if you play that, it's like, all right, why don't you try Metroid Dread? It's available in the eShop for blah, 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 blah. Like, make that, give that a thread for people to follow.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just don't advertise other M. You pretend that didn't exist, and instead you get them onto Prime. See, curating.
Exactly. Yeah. Next one I want to give a shout out to, and this kind of goes in the same vein with Star Fox as like a franchise that I think went the way of the dodo because of what people see as like the value of any given game, and it used to be really like a tentpole in terms of the graphical fidelity of any given Nintendo console. We haven't seen it since the GameCube era, and that's Wave Race. Wave Race is simple to understand, but can be difficult to master given how choppy any given level is, or any given cup or course is. But it is very different from Mario Kart. Like it really doesn't. The closest thing that I could say that probably controls like it is like a Diddy Kong Racing when you're in any water level.
Yeah, it's like F-Zero on water, really.
Yeah, kind of like, and it's a type of game that like you don't even see other people try to really replicate anymore. Weirdly enough. And when you go back and look at like, best of videos for like the N64 or the GameCube, people are always like, "Oh my god, look at the water effects! Like the physics of this game are insane," and like they're not wrong.
It's exactly what I was going to say. One of the things that made this so impressive is in the earlier eras of video games, like the hardest thing for them to do was believable water, and anything that could make even remotely believable water was a technical showcase. And this made the Nintendo 64 look like a graphical powerhouse, which for its era, not wrong. It absolutely was. And the fact that you could not only have water that looks like water, but was so interactable, the way that like the waves affected the way that you had to like, fly your jet ski around on them. Incredibly impressive. And now with where the technology is out today, like you can make that look spectacular. Racing games always look great anyway. You include, how great the water effects look. It adds a really interesting wrinkle, like to take nothing away from like more two-dimensional racers, but when you're on a relatively flat plane, there are only so many ways you can make that interesting. And having a constantly shifting dynamic course that you're on, like you do on the water, is a really cool wrinkle to it. And I'd love to see them do something with that.
Yeah, like even in Mario Kart, we really don't see many levels where like the ground beneath you is changing.
Yeah.
Like, you are changing in that like you're racing upside down or you're like going through twists and curves, but like that aspect of it really hasn't happened outside of like driving in water.
Yeah, and
like,
even
inside of
then,
it.
really, in Mario Kart, when you go in the water, you end up flat, like on a flat plane
Right.
in the water, right? You're not, you're not riding the waves or the surfaces. And obviously, you do things like you hit jumps, and you have twists and turns. Like there's plenty that Mario Kart does great to be dynamic, but it's not the same thing as having that just baked into the DNA of how your form of transport interacts with whatever it surfaces, right? And being able to to race well meant being able to like anticipate and read the waves, in addition to just make like turns at the right time and use your like boost at the right time and things like that. It's a different type of skill that takes beyond like just very like Twitch racer skills, and being able to cater to different types of skill sets is a cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like I really don't like this idea that just because Mario Kart's so successful, we can't have other racers. I don't know. It's just it seems like you're leaving the rest of the kids out. Like I think of to get Nintendo for a second. I miss the MotorStorm franchise so much.
Oh yeah,
on PlayStation,
extremely cool.
Just like driving on dirt and all that good stuff. They just felt different. How about you? Did you have any other franchises we haven't shouted out yet?
Ooh, of the Nintendo Mega Tricks, I mean, I would love to see another Donkey Kong country game specifically.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think that it's not so much a franchise that he hates, although I don't care what he says. I love those early Donkey Kong country games from the Nintendo 64 era. Having things that like look like what they look like was huge for us at the time. And so I would love to see that. And in particular, like the way that they're so laden with secrets and things to find, and you would always be trying to figure out how to make that like completion percentage go up. Was extremely interesting, and something that I was really invested in trying to like find all these different things. So I would love to see more with that. It's been so many years since we've had a proper Donkey Kong platformer. I would love to see that come back. And you know what? Honestly, here's a controversial take. Would not hate seeing them take a stab at a 3D platformer again.
What, Donkey Kong?
Yeah, like Donkey Kong 64 style. I didn't love Donkey Kong
absolutely.
64, but I'd love to see them take another stab at it. I think, you look at, you don't have to go to the level of Odyssey, but, look at all the 3D Marios that we've had since then and how they've iterated in different ways, and they've had different conceits and different approaches. I think that you can do the exact same thing with a Donkey Kong game in 3 dimensions and do something really, really cool.
No, I completely agree. I mean, that's something in the early days of the boardroom, even Odell was kind of banging that drum, alongside us. Donkey Kong 64 for what it is. I don't think it's a bad game necessarily. I just think it's a bloated game. Like there's, I understand. I feel like on paper they were like, yeah, you're gonna have this many Kongs and there's this many bananas in each level, and it's gonna be great. And then you start doing it, and it's like, wow, this is a lot of content, and I don't know if anyone's ever gonna finish this game. But yeah, I think it's definitely for a 3D game, absolutely. And they don't really have any games in the lineup as far as platformers are concerned, or where your main protagonist is like that heavy, just kind of throwing their weight around. I mean, that's kind of the point of DK. And well,
and in particular, in a Mario game, especially the 3D ones, you play as Mario, right?
Right.
Mario is Mario, right? That's who you play as.
Yeah.
Whereas in in Donkey Kong 64, you had different playable characters and protagonists who did different things, had different colored bananas to acquire, and things like that. You could do some really creative stuff with characters who move differently, who have different abilities to get to different places and do those things in different ways. It's something that I think there's a lot of room to explore. As much as I don't have a lot, I hope that's a high priority for Nintendo right now.
No, but I mean, I think you bring up a good point. Like, I don't think they necessarily need to create just a Mario style game with Donkey Kong in it. Like, part of the, I loved Chunky Kong. I loved Lanky Kong. Like, I loved how weird they were and how weird they controlled, because you never really saw weird characters like that in any other 3D
utterly
platformer.
bizarre.
Yeah. And it really hasn't happened since, because while they weren't your protagonist, you were still playing with them for 20% of the
hours.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. Having that the different abilities distributed between each of them was super cool. It forced you to play the level in different ways. I think there's a very right and a very wrong way to do that, and I think if they were to try and make that game and they go the ukulele route where it's like it's too expansive and everything's super spread out, like it almost makes the Donkey Kong 64 problem worse.
Right. Yeah,
like
totally.
it just makes it. They're like, oh, it needs to be bigger and better. And it's like it doesn't. Like make the levels like small and dense.
Yep,
that's all we want.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe it's it's the old people in us, but like it's they need to find that happy medium of like it feels good to play. Like it doesn't run as like much of a slog as it did on the N64, but it still has that like sense of discovery where you're taking your time walking through the world to appreciate it. But you're like you said, you're uncovering secrets. Like there's not enough. I feel like there aren't enough games out there anymore where like it's left to obscurity.
Yeah.
Like Donkey Kong Country, if you just give that to somebody, and you're chasing that percentage, it's just like I have no idea where to begin.
You start banging on every wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we need more obscure games like that for sure. Elden Ring is probably the closest thing to that. But
yeah, so you heard it here first, folks. Elden Ring is the Donkey Kong 64 of the modern era.
That's exactly right. Before we move on to our next topic, anything else there, Mr. Justin?
I don't think there are any other dormant Nintendo franchises of relevance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Maybe Rhythm Heaven, but I don't have a good idea for that one. Yeah. So we're gonna move on. And Elite Beat Agents.
Wii Music.
I'm a music game fan. Yeah, Wii Music. All right, topic 2. We are going to talk about Nintendo and AI. What I am going to say is I'm going to start this out by this is going to be a bit of a lengthy setup because one of it is from a podcast I listened to this past weekend, and one is from an anecdote from a podcast that I read about. But I feel like they're kind of related. They are non-Tendo, but it got me thinking about what would Nintendo do in this kind of space. So the first one is going to be a news story from Xbox president Sarah Bond. This was shared in an Xbox podcast. This was how she wrapped up this podcast with a tease. She said, "We've got more to come. There's still some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. We're also invested in the next generation roadmap. What we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building." The other piece of this that I want to tap into, and stick with me, on the WAN show this week, if you're a watcher of LTT, Linus Tech Tips, they had TenseTorrent CEO Jim Keller on talking about their AI platform that they're working on, and they're specifically working on AI chipsets that they're going to build into computers. And a programming language that'll use it. So his quote: they were talking about the playing older games and how AI is going to impact like emulation, things like that. We're getting very technical if you couldn't tell because Logan's not here. Jim Keller's quote: "You were talking about, well, how are we going to run the old games? None of that is going to exist. Even stuff as simple as video is all going to be generated. Nobody 10 years from now is going to be watching a movie. You're going to live in the movie, right? It's going to be all real-time generated, and you can interact with it. You can ask your favorite character what's going on, and they'll say, 'Shut up, I'm shooting something.' This is all going to happen faster than you think. All the mediums that you think about when you think about what's available today in the entertainment industry are going to be toast, and all the software you've ever written is going to be long gone." He also discusses, that's the end of the quote, he also discusses having onboard chips that are solely dedicated for AI processing becoming the norm. So with that being said, and with what Microsoft has said, with them making the largest hardware technical leap next generation, how do we think Nintendo is going to handle this AI situation in their development cycle? Not in this coming generation, but maybe the next one or the one after that. Do we anticipate that they are going to be forced to adopt uh, whatever the new AI era brings and how it impacts games, do we think they're going to stick to a more traditional, like, you buy a box, you play a game, it has a controller, we ship software? Like, are they going to stick to that model, or is it going to be? Are they done? Like, is it just like one part of this interview is he talks about you going into an AI prompt and saying, like, you're not going to own a copy of Super Mario Brothers. You're going to go into an AI prompt and say, here's a YouTube video of Super Mario Brothers. I would like to play this game. And then it generates the game for you in real time, and then you play it. Like, what does Nintendo do in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I think that one of the things that I find really interesting about kind of the debates around AI, especially as it affects video games nowadays, is how different sentiment towards the term AI is today versus what it was in the past. You know, you go to 2005, right? And you say, hey, this game has a ton of AI. Everyone's like, yeah, let's go, AI. now it's 2024. You're like, hey, this game is chock full of AI. Everyone's like, boo, boo. And it's because it means a bunch of different things, right? I think that's part of what makes the conversation hard, because there are elements of, like, again, the artificial intelligence of enemy characters is a thing that video games have had forever. That's
generations, yeah.
Yeah, that is AI, and that's an important piece of AI. Like, if you're, sneaking up on a enemy in Metal Gear Solid and then, like, behaving in ways that are rational and make sense, like, that's enemy AI. Or when you're playing, if you're playing Super Mario Strikers and the other team is, like, CPU, right? When you're playing Smash and you're cranking up the difficulty of the CPU, you're influencing the AI, right? So that's something that's always part of games and always going to be part of games. And that's a different element from other things. So you mentioned, you were asking about the integration of AI in future Nintendo consoles. And I think it's very clear that the next console is almost certainly going to be integrating AI. But not in this scale, and not what they're describing here. Really, I think it's extremely likely that it's going to be a very DLSS-like integration, right? Where, and again, Logan's not here. We're nerdy. It's going to get technical. Just deal with it. Where basically what you're doing is you are using AI to effectively create what more powerful graphics processing would do with similar results at a fraction of the processing effort, right? And I think that... Go ahead.
No, so you're talking about it in terms of, like, a tool to make the game run more efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we see that on, like, modern NVIDIA chips today, right? Where you turn this on, you're still getting your 4K, except you're getting way better frame rates, because it's significantly less taxing because of the way it's using AI to help generate graphics, rather than just pure raw graphics horsepower to generate graphics, right? I think we're going to see integrations like that, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that's a great thing to lower the technical burdens to still have things that look and play great. Where it gets more complicated is when you're getting to the point where you're having AI make actual design decisions. And that's a lot of what this conversation is focused on, and that's where I think it does become, frankly, more problematic. Using the example of, like, hey, I want to play this game, and it generates a game. That's not how good games are made,
That's kind of my concern. Like, there's, you asking that prompt at 4 p.m. on Sunday may yield different results than me asking that at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Like, at least in my mind, that's how I see this going. Like, the experience that I have with, I'll call it Super Mario AI, of, like, let's say it's a brand new next gen platform, 3D platformer that is generated in real time, right, with a prompt that I've created that I'm giving out. That, to me, first of all, when does it end? Like, because it has to at some point, or are you just, like, trapped in this hellscape of constantly I can't stop playing this game, and yeah, like I mean, there's so many questions that go into it. I feel like you almost have to have like the bumpers on a little bit for it, like in order for it to make sense. Like I could see it being like aspects of the game, like let's say it's not Mario necessarily, but they make a franchise that is like everything almost like a Spelunky, where they're like, are the levels are generated in real time when you're playing it. It's a brand new franchise where it's like an enemy has to fit within the confines of like it can only be so tall where the character has to jump over it or be able to hit the top of it, and all those sorts of different criteria that have to be met. Because like I have this fear that someone, at least early stages of this, is going to go in here and be like, this whole game is made with AI, and then it's going to be like half broken because you can't QA test it appropriately. Because it's so like just not controlled, at least by human controlled,
Yeah, and I think that there's an important distinction too between like procedural generation and AI generation. Like typically, for procedural generation, you make humans have set up like different algorithms and different like qualifications for like what your like input and output. And in theory, what should happen is if the algorithm that dictates this procedural generation is this, if I feed it the exact same thing 50 times, I'll get the exact same results, right? It's just like feeding different numbers into the variables in the equation. If you feed the same numbers into those same variables, you should get the same output. And that's not necessarily the way that AI works. Instead, AI is letting it handle decision making, and it's much more open-ended for what it can do. And realistically, the results largely have meant it's much more likely to be terrible. If even now, like AI generated image, like static images, right, are so easy to figure out because because like, oh, you have too many or too few hands. Why does this person have 8 legs? Why does he have a robot shoulder? And any projects that you see that are like AI made that do look convincing, I think I can think of one that was like a trailer for like a rock paper scissors anime that was supposedly AI generated. Actually, it was a substantial amount of like handcrafted work, rotoscoping, real actors going through things, and the amount of work to make that stuff not look terrible is a lot. And we're at this weird point where it's not clear that this stuff is ever going to work out and get to a point where it can do stuff that is quality and believable. Or if it's the opposite, where, especially the way it like scrapes for like information and data, if it's making just photocopies of photocopies in and of itself, it actually gets worse and worse over time. And so companies like Sony and Microsoft that are frankly betting pretty big on it are setting themselves up to a lot of exposure, and they have a lot of belief that it will work out. But the way the tech is actually operating, that is not clear at this point. And if it doesn't work out, they're going to, like, NVIDIA is a perfect example. Because NVIDIA, this is a significant part of how they operate, not just things like DLSS and how that affects your graphics processing, but like
it's a core business model for them.
Exactly. And so if you look, one of the best tips I ever saw is keep an eye on their stock price. If that is increasing to go up, and has gone up a ton, if that continues to go up, it means that all these companies that are buying into AI and AI workflows are seeing success and are continuing to reinvest. If it flattens out or starts to go down, then it means that the people who have bought into this are not finding good results. And when they start to divest, everybody will divest and it will crash. And I will say, if you are tracking it that way right now, it does not look very promising for NVIDIA. And so I absolutely expect this to be something that many of the manufacturers are going to try very, very hard to incorporate. I think Nintendo's largely going to sit it out. I do too. I don't think anything can force their hand. They don't have to do anything. They're the mad toy maker. So if they're gonna they'll happily make money selling their unique box that doesn't do what the other people's boxes do. And history has shown that is exactly the right approach for them.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I feel like they have nothing to lose by at least right now. They have nothing to lose continuing trucking on the way that they've been trucking on. Making games of the franchises that people love and innovating upon them. Like, we are here for them to give them our money. Like I don't think there's a real big risk, at least this coming generation. I am interested to see, like, are we going to have? We're in this weird point right now where, and I think it's part of the reason I've been. This is going to get a little bit off topic, but part of the reason I've been dipping into
There's no cops. Logan's not here.
Yeah, he can't stop me. Dipping into older titles over the past couple of years is A, because I'm old, and B, because I feel like there's been this focus in a lot of areas in modern games in places that I don't really care about, like it's almost like in bloat. Like it's as big as it needs to be because we need to be able to put it on the box, or the graphics need to be amazing, and we always talk about Nintendo like just banging to their own drum. And I am really worried that we're going to reach this point in the next Sony and Microsoft generation that they're going to go so far in on this that we're going to end up with like really bad products as a result. And I could be so wrong because I'm just a guy in a chair in a basement in Pennsylvania. But like there's been a lot of advancements in AI, like in terms of video generation. They're still not 100%. But there's something about when you think about Tears of the Kingdom and knowing, at least for me, when you look at Tears of the Kingdom and even a game I don't like, and I've been known to say that on the show, but knowing that this group of people came together and solved all of these problems, and that game like the systems in that game run as well as they do, it's a huge accomplishment. And for that to be taken away and it just be replaced by, I don't care so much the development process. If it makes their job easier and people don't have to go through crunch, I think that's fine. But when you're like making core gameplay decisions of like, well, the AI said that this is how we should design this system within the game, it's like, well, like what's left at that point? There's not, I don't know, maybe you're left more for more creativity, or gives you more space to be more creative. Like maybe that's the side of it that we'll see.
I do feel like, so kind of going back to how, like where I started the conversation, there absolutely are places for it, right? Again, things like improved enemy AI, huge. There are certain basic work applications that I'm not knowledgeable enough, things like coding, where there may be some like workflow improvements for people to make the jobs easier. Now, cynically, I worry that the more that it does that, what they'll do is they'll just reduce headcount and keep just fewer people, pay less, crunching more. Right. Rather than just like, oh, everybody is doing the exact same job for the same pay but being worked less hard, which is what would be ideal. And so I do have some concerns there. And, there is, speaking of bloat, like there is a bloat that is happening, especially in the big AAA game space, where the amount of time and money it takes to produce games makes it increasingly difficult to sell something profitably. And there are some potential vectors for relief that could come with tool sets making the development processor faster and easier and more manageable. But it comes with these risk factors like we've discussed, and it's not clear that it will work that well and that it will be successful. So but that is a good reason, though, that there should be some exploration of these things. There should be some ways for people to look at ways that, like, there could be certain amounts of AI or automation that can relieve pain points from the development process, that still lets artists be artists and designers be designers, and the human touch guide a gameplay experience that we all get to enjoy.
Yeah, like I think best case scenario, that's what happens, right? It's like it frees up creative people to not have to deal with annoying technical problems, and they can just be creative. Like that's really what you want out of it. Yeah,
exactly. And honestly, I think the worst case scenario, truthfully, is what this goober described, where you're watching a movie that has been AI generated with an AI actor, because that means that, like, one, a voice actor didn't deliver these lines that are being shot back to me, two, a writer didn't write this line in this interaction, so it is lost all sense of artistic merit, and instead becomes just psychological slop to be fed into our brains. So the last thing I want to happen is whatever the heck this guy is talking about.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of it too, like, and this is probably the last piece I'll touch on, is the way that it gets delivered. So, like, if it ends up being where you are going up to a prompt and you're like Sora, right? Like, so if you're not familiar with Sora, it's like that AI video platform where you can give it a prompt and it will generate a video for you. So, like, there's one that's out there where it's like astronauts. I want an astronaut movie shot in the style of like Wes Anderson, and there's like a video of that, of like what comes out when you ask it that. If I'm Warner Brothers, is the plan that you are given, like, these are popular prompts that people have made for a Batman movie, and you can buy it for this much? Yeah, and they're just collecting that, or is it like we've curated the perfect prompt for you, and it made the movie, and now you can buy the movie? I feel like it's got to be the latter, because you need to still have the community aspect. Where if I watch a Batman movie and you watch a Batman movie and they're both different, like, that's a problem. Like, there's nothing for us to talk about at that point other than, oh, that's weird, this is what happened in my movie.
Right. And frankly, just as, like, nerds who like to consume media, like, what is the canon in that situation? And,
right. Like, that we're just arguing, like, over what's real.
Yeah. And, like, right. And, you know, where is that long-term storytelling? Where's the vision? Right. And yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. I'm terrified. But we'll see where it goes. All right. That's enough about AI. We'll see what Nintendo does. Thank you for sticking with us through that roller coaster ride of gobbledygook.
Let me say, though, if you are listening, bookmark when we started that conversation. If you have young kids who are having trouble sleeping, put the headphones on them, have them listen to that portion, and away they go. Yeah.
I will say, if you're actually, like, if you're into this stuff, that interview with Jim Keller is great. Like, he's just really funny. So if you go to the WAN show on YouTube, an hour in is where it's this past week. It's the 24th. So whatever the most recent episode happened after the 24th is, an hour in is when he gives that quote. It's like the end of the interview, but the interview is like an hour long. So he, if you're at all technical, definitely check it out. Or go to sleep to it, because that's what most people will probably do if you haven't fallen asleep already. All right, we are going to hit some quick news updates. Our first one is going to be Splatfest results. Oh boy! So last week we had to choose what Splatfest team would we be on if we were playing. I myself did not play. Justin, did you play in Splatfest this week?
No, I didn't. But I think we should mention how all three of us voted when we had the opportunity.
You're darn tootin'. So our choices were Baby Chicks, Lil Bunnies, and Bear Cubs, and all three of the boardroom members went with Bear Cubs, which won by a landslide.
More than the other two combined. Let's go, Bear Cubs.
Let's go, Bear Cubs.
Duh Bears.
485. Duh Bears. 485 for the Bear Cubs. Little Bunnies with 175, and Baby Chicks for 210. I think that's right. I might have Little Bunnies.
That's what you have written down. And if that was the order of results, I think that's exactly appropriate.
Yeah. All I know is the Bears won, baby. That's what matters. This week we also had a surprise Nintendo online drop for the expansion pass for N64 players. Iggy's Wrecking Balls and Extreme G on Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass. If you're not familiar, Iggy's Wrecking Balls. This is one of those games you would see in the 90s at Blockbuster. I don't think anyone actually owned this game, but everyone rented it. And
you know, it's hilarious. I played a ton of Extreme G and Extreme G2 when 100% was rented every single time.
100%. Nobody owned these games. There's no way.
There's 5 copies that just got passed around.
Yeah, it's so weird. It was one of those moments, and they're rare for me anymore. where because I've seen like the box for Iggy's at like conventions and stuff, but I saw the game running. Like Game Explained did a stream of it as soon as it dropped, and like a whole section of my brain was just like "Gagoosh." Like I remember playing it at my cousin's house when I was little and everything. What we had for dinner that night, I was like, whoa, I haven't thought about that in a really long time. Yeah, Extreme G, kind of like a almost like an F-Zero competitor to some extent. It's like a bobsled type game.
Yeah, well, so you're on like it's the Nintendo 64.
It looks like
it was hard for things to look like what they look like.
Yeah.
Those are like cyberpunk motorcycles, my friend.
Sure.
And so you are the coolest when you're riding around on those. Yeah, it was at least at the time what felt like a very, very high speed racer with tracks that had like hills, valleys, and turns and twists and all these things. I can't remember if the first one did as much of the like inverted and like zero G type stuff as the second, but it was really cool, and I played it for hours and hours and hours with friends. Very fun, and it was a perfect example of the sort of thing that like felt very next gen compared to what we had on the like all the just very sort of sprite based stuff that we had on the previous generation.
Yeah, I feel like they were later titles on the N64. Like the PS1 had been out for a while. Yeah, if you at all are at all interested in the N64 and you don't know these games at all, they're so weird. You should definitely play them. It's like a weird like get that in some like Ecto Cooler or something. It's like a snap in time like playing those games. Like they just don't make stuff like that anymore. Other one, if you're in the UK across the pond, you guys just got a huge amiibo restock that I'm very jealous of.
Yeah, man, I saw the tweet for that. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. Then I saw it was like UK Nintendo, and my heart just fell because it seems like they restocked everything.
Yeah, like you can get I think it's like the entire Super Mario line got restocked, which hasn't happened in the US at this point. They've done like 5 or 6. I think they did the ones like for the characters in the Mario movie, and that's like all we've really seen. So like I still don't have Boo, I still don't have Waluigi. I only have Wario because Logan gave him to me. Like he sent it to me in the mail. So yeah, there's if you're in the UK, I'm very jealous of you. And if you're in the US, you can't import it from what I've seen because it is on the UK Nintendo website, which is very sad.
If only you could figure out some sort of virtual private network to help navigate.
Yeah, but they gotta ship it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, prohibitively
you can
expensive.
do mail forwarding and all that.
Yeah,
like,
definitely cheaper just to buy it like locally.
Yeah.
Even with
at that point, I'm getting it
upcharge.
on eBay.
Yeah. So I will say I own 2 amiibo now. I didn't own any when I started on the show, but I did end up getting the Wolf Link amiibo when there was a restock of those, and I have the Guardian amiibo.
Nice.
So I've got a couple. That guy, where is he? He might be downstairs. That is a chunker of a box though. That is a big amiibo.
Oh, the Guardian one.
Oh yeah. Wait, there he is.
Yeah, he's a hefty boy.
He's a big boy.
I think he's the biggest amiibo that I have.
Absolutely.
Yard Yoshi was the biggest one, but
absolutely enormous. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because that thing is just insane. But that or the cereal box, I guess you could say that was bigger. But I cut that out.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I have the chip. Like,
you just harvested that. Nice.
Yep, that's all I need. I don't need the entire box.
Just the NFC.
Yep. Yeah, good job, Amiibo. Well done. Last news item we have, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is coming to Switch on June 25th. A new multiplayer trailer dropped. It has 16 player rumbles, race to the finish. Don't go baboom. I haven't read these notes yet on this.
Okay, so basically, I just copied the flavor text from it because I knew that I'm sure there's an exact bespoke name for these, and like Logan will be like, oh, actually, yeah, that mode is called this mode. It debuted in this game, and because he's literally like an encyclopedia, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know the name of these things. I'm just going to copy these things down. So yeah, Chris is Ron Burgundying a little bit, just reading what's on the prompter.
I haven't seen the trailer yet. I wish I knew what the menus were.
Okay. Wait. All right. So I think you can probably figure out what race to the finish is, right?
Yeah, it's monkey race or whatever. It is.
Okay, Chris, for the people.
What does monkey go?
Tell us what you believe don't go baboom means. What mode is that? Just describe that mode to the audience.
First, I'm imagining it's like, you know, the board game Operation.
This is already taking a weird turn.
Like you get dropped onto a giant board of a naked monkey on a gurney. Not naked, you know what I mean? It's an operation. He's getting operated on, and you can't hit the sides. Is it that? Is that what's going baboo?
Okay, you will not believe this, Chris, but it is not.
Oh no!
It's like that classic mode where like somebody is going to explode and it's counting down, and if they touch somebody else, it passes on to them.
Potato.
Yeah, exactly. It's like hot potato. Nobody has to get naked for this one.
I'm not gonna get surgery fully clothed.
Hey, listen, how you are dressed while you are playing this is entirely up to you, but...
Oh my god.
All right. But Chris,
right.
wait, no, hold on. Tell me about Win the Banana Hunt, Chris.
Win the Banana Hunt.
Yeah, Win the Banana Hunt.
Is a game, it's a capture the flag mode.
That's not too bad. The course is covered in bananas, and you're trying to gather them up. And I don't know, and I think it's whoever has the most wins, and there may even be special bananas.
Is it like Katamari?
Well, I mean, you're not like rolling them up and ejecting them into the sun to explode, but
am I growing? Or am I
no. So if anything, like so you're rolling around in your little monkey ball, right? You know what would be the easiest way to describe it? Imagine like a Mario Kart battle mode, except the track is covered in bananas, and you're trying to run over as many as possible.
Oh, okay.
To accumulate them. Again, probably nobody naked. but Logan will correct us next week if somebody is.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely going to correct us next week.
He is smashing everything around him right now.
Oh my god. I haven't laughed that hard in a while. Oh yeah.
See, this is what happens when the inmates run the asylum, everybody.
That's right. Oh boy, we have two emails from EGAD's emails. I purposefully left. I will say this: if you wrote an email for this week's episode, and it was a question or a comment that I thought Logan should be here for, you are not in this week. So I do apologize, but you will be.
You are not being ignored.
Week. You're not being ignored. You're being you're being ignored with purpose.
Okay, way better.
There's a reason for it. Listener Red, hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. Nice. After hearing you guys talk the past couple weeks about the life of a Nintendo Switch, I was curious, do you think we'll ever get a full online experience? How you do with PlayStation and Xbox with party chat and a really fleshed out online, or do you think it'll always be limited? Also, second quick question. Why do you think we never got Pokemon games on the Virtual Console, let alone being able to buy them again on the shop like we could on the 3DS? Thanks, guys. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
I can start off with this one. So I'm hopeful. I hope, like, that's near the top of my wish list items for what I want to see out of the next console is a, frankly, just more standard online presence. In theory, it sounds like we should be able to bring forward our profiles to the next generation, which hopefully means friends list and things like that. I would love for there to be a much more reliable and stable platform for managing your friends, for getting into parties. Right now, it's still a fairly scattershot, like game-by-game approach, and I would love for Nintendo to unify that and take a little bit more control over how that operates. Will they? I think that they will get closer to it. I think that it's very likely that they're going to take one more step in the direction of a real online platform. Probably won't go as far as a lot of us want them to go, and that's their nature. That's kind of how they approach that.
I will say, I have two thoughts on this. One of them is either I feel like they're going to continue what they're doing, and I feel like they do it because obviously it's not technical imitation at this point. I think maybe the Switch was technically limited in the amount of RAM that it probably had to be able to support a game running and like a chat system and all that. I understand that 360 had it, but let's move on. It's a handheld console. I'll give them that. I think what it is like the obscurity thing. Like, it is so... you have to have someone's friend code in order to become their friend. And I think that's difficult for a child, like a child to understand how that works. So it is a bit of a safety net for like, hey, you're not going to play with the wrong person, online with the wrong person, or be able to communicate with somebody over Switch like by accident.
Yeah, it's almost like opacity as a feature.
Exactly. Yeah. Like security by obscurity is like what we tend to call it in the IT world. The other side of it is I would love it if it was an opt-in thing though. Like if it was like, hey, it looked at your Switch. Let's say it looks at your Switch account and it's like, are you a parent or guardian? Are you over the age of 18 or whatever they deem worthy? Like by default, it's like, cool, you have a Wii friend code. Like it's, let's say that's like in IT, it's like your object GUID. Like you have an ID associated with your account where it's like, this is Chris's account, but then there's like a friendly name where it's like my account number is 1234, but my name is Shrives93.
Oh my God, you just gave away your account number, Chris.
No. But like if they had an opt-in system for that, I think that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's a good compromise.
Yeah. I don't think they'll do it. But I would like them to. To your second question though, as far as why don't I think they put Pokemon games on the Switch, I think it's because then everyone would realize how bad the new Pokemon games are. No. No, it's a good question.
Yeah, so like now that you mention, I do wonder to what extent. So Pokemon is not a solely Nintendo-owned operation, right? The Pokemon Company actually has multiple interested parties who are invested in that, and so as a result, Nintendo doesn't have total unilateral control over every aspect of it. I wonder if it was purely a 100% first-party endeavor, if we would have seen more from them by this point. I don't know that to be the case, but it is something that I do think about.
Yeah, I don't know how much of this plays into like that whole. Are we going to see that on Switch Online? Like, is that going to be a thing? I don't think we will now. I think it's too late.
There's certainly an element of it generates free marketing.
Yeah. But like, what are you promoting now?
It's like their own Silk Song.
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit. It's that or they're holstering it, right? Like that's a great thing for like the time that we're in now, where it's like, hey, we don't have a ton of first party games in the pipeline.
If we see
the Pokemon Company needs to bake for
if we see a Pokemon blowout this fall and winter, we'll know that that's exactly what transpired.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then finally, we have a comment from our listener, Kevin. He's the one that provided us with the question about, or really the comment discussion that kicked off last week about motion controls on the Wii U versus the Joy-Con, and how he played Breath of the Wild on Wii. If you didn't listen to last week's show, he played Breath of the Wild on Wii U originally, and was like, I don't understand whatever he's talking about with these motion controls. I think this is great. And then played it on Switch and was like, wow, this is hot garbage. Now I get it. And so he wrote back to us. So we have Boardroom. Thanks for reading my email. I'm writing back in response to your questions. I agree with Chris that using the motion controls on the Switch in handheld mode is very difficult to control. It feels very strange to me to try and stay focused on something that you yourself are moving around just a foot from your face. I played the Wii U version of Breath of the Wild on the gamepad, and I played the Switch version of Breath of the Wild in handheld mode in docked mode with the Joy-Con grip. I hadn't purchased the Switch Pro controller at the time on my playthrough, and even though I have one now, I haven't tried Breath of the Wild using it yet. So the poor motion controls may be because of the not too great Joy-Cons. And I also think there may be some merit in the large size of the Wii U gamepad, making the accelerometer gyro feel much better. Is the gamepad that much bigger than the Switch?
It's significantly thicker.
It's definitely thicker.
It has kind of a contoured shape. I mean, the screen
across
takes up less of the space.
Bigger.
I got both of those downstairs. I'm not going to run down and grab them, but
no, I don't. Yeah,
but I mean, I will say I do think the sheer beefiness more than like the width of that gamepad is probably a big factor.
Yeah, it's true. Interesting. I do think there's something up with the Joy-Con. Like, I'm dying on that hill. I've never had a Nintendo console that
they're
I've
terrible
used.
controllers.
The controllers, yeah, like
Just
that. This little
full
one.
stop.
They're terrible.
They are as bad as the Pro Controller is good. It is the dichotomy of Nintendo.
That's a great way to put it. Oh man, what a shame. Well, everybody, this has been the Toadstool Asylum, the Toadstool Boardroom, episode 87. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Justin. Where on the internet are you? Where can they find you? What are you up to?
You can find me on Twitter, largely avoiding the current discourse at KOREIS.
Of reality.
Right. By the time you listen to this podcast, you should be able to read my review for Top Spin 2K25 on GameSpot.com, a new byline for me that I'm pretty excited about. Otherwise, keep checking out like Fallout videos and stuff on IGN. I've been doing a lot of work on guide videos for those. Or don't. You do you.
I have been checking out those Fallout videos, and I'm very excited for the next gen update to drop this week. Drops tomorrow.
Just finished another script about that I sent in to him today.
There you go. You can find me at Shrives93 on all parts of the internet. If you have any advice on how to start selling a game collection, let me know. I am trying to clean house a little bit. If you haven't visited my Twitter recently, that's basically all it's been. It's just the
if you want to see
of a madman.
Ceiling high boxes, visit Chris's
Ceiling
Twitter.
high boxes. Yeah, that's all this is behind me. Yeah, go ahead. Go no further than my Twitter. Yeah, you can find me Shrives93. You can find Logan at Logan J Plant. Thank you, everyone, for listening again to the Toadstool Boardroom. We will see you next week. Logan will be back. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.